Hi, I'm Corey Larson, and this is my final project for SPAD 561, summer of 23. This project will consist of a few words on Laura Ingram's Shut Up and Dribble commentary, a commentary in which she chastises and insults LeBron James for his support of Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential election. She then goes on to minimize his comments on Donald Trump's performance as our president, calling him, quote, unintelligible and making light of the fact that he lacks a college degree. Now, what Miss Ingram doesn't seem to understand, despite all her academic credentials, is that James and many other black athletes in this country have played a significant role in affecting social awareness and political change. But since she doesn't seem to have any understanding on this, I'm hoping that my words that follow will educate her and others as to the significant role that black athletes play in politics in America, and the fact that for them, because of their status as black Americans, the divide between sport and politics isn't nearly as significant as her and her listeners think it is. Let me start out by telling her the story of a young black athlete named Jack Johnson. In 1908, Johnson famously became the first African American to win the heavyweight championship of the world. Johnson was a man that wasn't political in the least. He wanted instead to live his life in fame and fortune and enjoy all the riches that being heavyweight champion of the world afforded him. However, he could not outrun the political machine in this country, as he was convicted in 1910 under the Mann Act for engaging in what is largely believed to be a consensual relationship with a white woman. Johnson wasn't alone. This Mann Act was used to convict many other black men for similar bogus charges. In fact, this conviction was so important that in 2018, her beloved Donald Trump chose to posthumously pardon him. Now, many believe, including myself, that this was largely done as a political stunt by the Trump administration to improve their image on race relations following his abhorrent comments following the Charlottesville incidents. Now, what about the most famous black athlete of the middle part of the 20th century, Jackie Robinson? Now, Robinson famously integrated baseball, which at the time was the most popular sport in the country, and didn't speak out on politics at all during his playing career. However, when he retired and realized he was not a baseball player anymore, he chose to lend his agency as a former athlete to the civil rights cause because he saw himself as a black man. And he knew more so than anyone that when you're an athlete and you're black, America doesn't see you any other way. You're black. So he lended his agency and helped push together meaningful change. Now, we could debate whether the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s would have been passed with or without his input. But what we can't dispute is the fact that the most famous athlete of the middle part of the century chose to speak out, and we saw positive political change. Now, the 1960s also saw another famous athlete, also a heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, who spoke out on politics. Now, did he speak out on politics because he wanted to? Perhaps. However, he was also being impacted by the political machine in a significant way. The U.S. government failed to recognize his status as a conscientious objector, despite the fact that his Islamic faith clearly defined him as such. So, what I'll ask Miss Ingram and others is, should Ali not have spoken out on politics? Did Ali find politics, or did politics find him? I would say it was the latter, and they found him because he was a black man. Because the reality is, despite his significant objections to his draft status, many other Americans, to include Mr. Trump, were finding other ways to avoid service in Vietnam with no legal repercussions at all. So it seems Miss Ingram would prefer we go to an age where black athletes don't even see themselves as black, instead riding a system that strips them of their identity as black Americans, conditions them to believe that so long as they are athletes, the world's woes don't apply to them. A system that claims it will provide them fame, fortune, and a college education that she so values. The problem is with a system like this is it has been proven to not work. O.J. Simpson, who famously wrote this system and was famously apolitical, in fact, he's rumored to have said, "I'm not black, I'm O.J., is the poster child for why this doesn't work. In the end, O.J.'s life serves as a tale for Americans of how race is always present in our country. He may or may not have murdered his wife, but he did go on trial. And when he went on trial, our nation divided largely along racial lines, with black Americans siding with O.J. and white Americans believing that he was guilty of killing his white wife and her white friend. Now, did O.J.'s status as an athlete have anything to do with it? Absolutely, because if he hadn't been an athlete, he would have been just another black man on trial in America. So, although O.J. had no desire to be a political figure, he had never been involved in any sort of civil rights movement. In the end, he became a significant figure in outing the racist tendencies of the Los Angeles judicial system. So, an athlete who was black, had no desire to be in politics, was drawn into politics. So, again, I'll ask Ms. Ingram, does the divide truly exist if even when black athletes have no desire to be involved in social or political issues are drawn in? There's some food for thought. So, what Ms. Ingram seems to forget that is for black athletes in America, when they leave, after the game is over, when they leave the arena or the stadium, they are still black Americans. And unlike her and I, who go home and deal with middle-class white issues, these young men and young women have to deal with the fact of being black in America. And unfortunately, those two things are not the same. So perhaps Miss Ingram should take some of her own advice. And instead of telling James and other athletes to shut up and dribble, she should do a little bit more of shut up and listen, and maybe she'll learn something. I know I have. Thank you for listening, and thank you for all that you've done for us this summer.